5 o'clock hustle, bro.
5 o'clock.
5 to 8, 5 to 12, 5 to 3 until you get back up the next morning.
Every week I got a new idea.
And that's what it always is, right? It's crazy.
5 o'clock.
I was doing that in 2005, but everybody thought it was weird.
5 o'clock.
Thus, the side hustle was created.
5 o'clock hustle podcast.
Man, they're having so much fun.
What up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the 5 o'clock hustle podcast. What episode number is this, Dean?
Big 3-0, baby. 30.
That's right. We're here with another Master Series episode. This is going to be the last Master Series episode for a while. It's kind of our way of taking a short break during the beginning of the summer so we could still pump out some content for you, but at the same time give you some incredible value, hopefully some stuff that you're able to take and apply to your own startups, your own businesses that you're trying to create. And we have another awesome Master Series episode for you today.
Yeah, and you mentioned that we're taking a little break. So we took a break off last week, and we really wanted to make sure that everyone was devoted to especially for our listeners in the US, just to make sure that you're taking the time to really appreciate the freedoms that allow us to hustle as hard as we do in this country. So we didn't want to take away from that. So hopefully you were able to use the time to really fine tune your craft, and we're back at it this week.
That's right. The world, the free world is what we're just always need to celebrate every chance we get.
That's right. America.
But today we're talking about, it's something that I think a lot of us 5 o'clock hustlers have gone through. A lot of aspiring 5 o'clock hustlers are looking to get into, and we're going to be talking about how to find your big idea, what you're going to be running with for the next, who knows how long, to jumpstart, your side hustle, jumpstart your small business, even jumpstarting a new career.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to be going through some of the stuff that we do personally, some of the tried and true methods that people use across the world that they teach in universities, and all kinds of really good content for you here today. So let's jump right into it.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think about this idea, this topic a lot, because I struggle with it myself a ton, even before creating this podcast, even before creating the stuff that I'm working on now with the Hero's Journey. But like we talk about this all the time, really.
Yeah, we all have a ton of crazy ideas. I mean, we're all here because we're entrepreneurs at heart, and we have way too many ideas. And the lucky of us, maybe we've honed in on a handful there. We're doing one really successfully, but it's definitely like the key to all of this is figuring out what you want to pursue, what you want to go after, with passion and aggression and persistence. And it's hard to pinpoint what's worthy of your time and your effort and your resource and all this hustle that we talk about. So,
passion is incredibly huge when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also not all the time very practical.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things that I have on that hopefully can marry the two, that help some of those people who are so passionate about a thing, but might not know exactly how to start a business with that passion.
Yeah.
So let's hop right into it, and let's hit that one right on the head right now.
Which one?
The passion aspect. And yeah, because I think it's important for people to know that just because you love it doesn't make it automatically. I'm not saying it's never going to be a great business idea. I'm just saying it's automatically not going to be a great model for you to run with and spend all your time on, because without the right steps, you could be wasting a lot of your time.
Yeah, so there's no silver bullet to this. It's just basically you're building up a number of questions that you can ask yourself to figure out if this is on the right path. So, is this something I am passionate about? Right.
Yeah, that's the core of a sustainable business, is being passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there might be some bumps in the road where you might not be as passionate about it, but that's another aspect of the entire process entirely, is re-motivating yourself and keeping that fire lit and just going for it. But what I like to kind of explore is, like, for instance, people they have their hobbies, they have things that they like to do. Let's just pick a random one, basketball, for instance. I love basketball. I'm terrible at it.
I've seen you throw down.
So
bro.
I'm not gonna, be spending a ton of time at the free throw line, working on my free throw shots, trying to get into the league.
By the way, LeBron is a Los Angeles Laker.
That's
folks.
right.
So
welcome, LeBron. It's kind of bittersweet, I guess, because he was like my enemy for the longest time.
Oh, you gotta let that
Not
go.
my personal. I don't know the guy, but like spiritual enemy. Like he knows. Like if he saw me, if he looked me in the eye down the street,
He'd feel it.
a couple weeks ago before he was a Laker, then he'd definitely feel it.
You feel the passion.
No,
All right,
but
sorry about that. All right,
I'm-
you're not going to spend your time.
I'm not going to spend my doing that, but like if I'm really passionate about the sport, I might try to find something around the sport that I think could that I could like give value to.
Sure.
Whether it's perhaps a basketball podcast, where I'm breaking down the ins and outs of like the games and the draft picks, and like LeBron comes to the Lakers, breaking it down and like giving people value that way and getting potential sponsorships and the whole podcast spiel. You might also be able to start a sports store, and sell basketballs or like run a basketball court and rent out time and give space for coaches to come. Like the well of ideas is really endless, and that's kind of the thing that I want to explore here. Is being able to take that passion, finding the pain points, because that's what's really going to make a business work. Because if there isn't a problem, you're not going to sell anything.
Well, okay, so I just want to take it back one step further, because something you said was interesting. I don't want to skip over it.
Yeah.
So you said, I may be passionate about it, but it doesn't mean I'm good at it.
Right.
So I would venture to say that that's equally as important. Is either you're also good, like, so your passion doesn't need to be your business idea.
Right.
It plays a very strong role in it. Like you said, for sustainability, you need to keep enjoying what you're doing, or else you're going to want to do something else. That said, so is it something I'm passionate about? Question one. And question two for me would be, is it something I'm either good at or have experience with?
Sure.
And so for me, that plays a very heavy role for the reasons that you're saying. I'm not going to sit at the free throw line. So for me, I like gaming. I like computer games. I really enjoy them. I'm awful at them. So there was a time back some years ago where I was like, okay, I love gaming. And I have a ton of business development experience. So I was like, okay, why don't I reach out? The esports world is growing like crazy. They're not at the point where they have huge teams and huge organizations, but they were getting there. And I was like, well, why don't I reach out to the owner of one of the teams and see if they need someone to run their business development section, and see if they really want to start building out strong relationships and sponsorships and credibility with organizations.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's something that how I put that into action. I was like, okay, well, I love gaming. I'm not good at it, but I want to be surrounded by it. I want whatever I'm doing to always be involved with gaming. And I was like, well, I'm really good at business. So it's like, mesh the two and see what it comes up with. And it was an idea that there weren't business development professionals in esports at that time.
Right.
And it ends up now, it's a really popular, in fact, I just got a call back recently. And I'm obviously not going to go to it, but it's a huge role right now because of the sponsorships and everything. So that's just, one way to kind of put it into practice.
Man, that would be so much fun. Just like, I don't know, running something like that and like figuring out like, licensing deals, there's so many ways to go about something like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why we're talking about this today, because no matter what you're passionate about, there is a way for you to figure out a way to make money in and around it.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So but like I was saying before, the pain there in order to do that, there has to be a pain point, right? There has to be a problem that you're going to solve and make someone's life easier, like give them some kind of good feelings when they, take part of your product or service. Whether it's making them feel good, like physically, like for vanity reasons, or it's going to perhaps make them more money. I think those are two of the main things that you could really think of when it comes to what is someone going to buy, and it's got to kind of hit those points. It's either got to make them money, right? If they're going to participate in it, it's got to boost their ego, perhaps. You know, like for instance, like personal trainers and stuff. They kind of play on people's physical appearance and stuff, and like, hey, like I'm gonna make you look better, and you're gonna look great at the beach, and you know you're gonna get all these honeys, these male and female honeys, and everything's gonna be great. So that's like they made that work for them. But what I'm trying to say is that we can make it work for anything, and the way to do that is to find the pain point.
Yeah,
and
the pain point doesn't have to be something as direct as an area that it hurts someone. I mean, it could be an area of improvement too.
Right.
Like, you know, just not that you need to solve a problem. You just need to solve it better than the other person.
You can even think of people like psychologists and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're solving a huge problem because people are battling emotionally. And what they really want is confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to go outside. They don't want to feel the way they feel. They want to feel what they believe everyone else feels. You know, just normal. They want to feel good. They want to go out and, you know, and not think about all the stresses in their lives. They just want to go about life and be happy.
Yeah, it's getting deep.
That's a huge so they found a huge market, obviously. Like, because if you think about it, it's still a business. You know, all that stuff is still a business. You can look at other stuff that like the drug market, which is kind of doing the same thing, but in a much more negative aspect. You know, people have found different ways to solve the issues that are out there.
Well, yeah, everything's. I mean, they're like, oh, well, I think I figured out why you're so depressed, but the hour's up, so come back next week and we'll.
or like, you know what, you like go on like Normandy and Western and grab yourself a 2020 twin. And and it's basically the same thing, right? Yeah. No, it's not. But you know, it's still people like trying to solve issues out there.
Yeah, sure.
And I hate to compare a drug dealer to a psychologist, but I guess if you're a psychiatrist, which one gives the drugs? Psychiatrist or psychologist? I forget. Psychiatrist. So they're kind of a little closer.
They can write scripts.
They can write scripts, but everybody can get a script now. So
all right. So question. Let's just keep running through it because it's really good to keep like, you know.
So let's run through it. Pain points.
I'm sorry. So I was running back through the whole list, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. So what are you passionate about?
What are you passionate about?
What are you either good at or have experience with?
Mm-hmm.
And then what are you solving? What are you improving upon? So let's dive back into that.
Yeah. Let's. I just want to kind of try and give some practical examples of how you could find a pain point in something. And it's not as hard as like you might think. You know, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. Your idea doesn't even necessarily have to be original, and that's another conversation in and of itself. But when we look at what we're passionate about, like you said, and trying to find those pain points, all you have to do is like find out what are the things that bug you about whatever situation you're in. Yeah. What kind of improvements can you make upon the current situation of where your passion lies? Yeah. So an exercise that you can potentially do is say, okay, let's say I'm at like, let's go back to basketball. Like I'm at the basketball. I love the Lakers. So we go to Staples Center. We get some really nice seats. And you know, but you know what? These seats are super uncomfortable. You know, so like I'm in this place of my passion, and like I'm just uncomfortable.
You get passion block.
I wish this seat was so much better because it would make my entire experience here better, because you're sitting here for so long. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot of space. So you might think, like, what are some ways I can maybe solve that for myself right now? And then maybe the way that I solve that could benefit the tens of thousands of people that are also sitting in the same seats as I am at this very moment. Yeah. So you might create a cushion. You might figure out, you know, a way to like increase the size of like your cup holder, or turn your backpack into a cushion. You know, who knows what the idea actually is?
Like an inflatable keychain size pillow.
But the key is you're gonna have tons of ideas of how to fix that issue. And what you have to do is not throw any of them out, because a lot of them could work. And you're not going to know until you ask somebody. So what the first step I would do is figure out that pain point and think of every single way that you can make it better. Mm-hmm. And then you take then like no matter what it is, it could be the worst idea in the world, write it down, right? And then beyond that, you know, you need to kind of break those down, like which ones are going to be like which ones are really good, and then that you go into the testing process, right? So like let's stop there. I don't know if you have anything that like expand on that at all in terms of solving the pain points and creating an idea. But I think that's a really interesting step, and it's something that I've used. It's not the only way to do it, obviously. There's tons of different ways to create an idea. This is just a single example.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think that identifying pain points is something that we can all do almost every moment of every day. But we're so used to our hamster wheel. We're so used to, you know, going through the motions that we are actually zombies in a lot of different ways.
Right.
You know, I talk about it. I've talked about it many times, how we're zombies within conversation, kind of like waiting for our turn to speak.
Right.
And we do the same thing with our daily routine. So we'll walk through and have things that actively piss us off all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many inefficiencies that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, but we're so concerned with the light at the end of the tunnel of whatever it is that we're doing at that moment, whatever task that we're trying to complete, that we fully just avoid or look over and skip over the lesson in whatever we're doing. So I would just say just to be open. Right. Like start paying attention to things you're doing, because you do so many brilliant things every day that could be expanded upon and could be turned into that one thing that you love and that you pursue, but you're not paying attention to it.
Right. No,
so be present, be open-minded and be present.
That's huge, because there's tons of people out there, and there's times where I've been that person to where you just don't think about the solution. You just want to be in the problem.
Yeah.
And you just like, there's nothing about it that you like, and you just want to go away.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, like especially the people like us that we surround ourselves with, and hopefully a lot of you listeners, is to think about those problems and figure out a solution, because that could very well be the next big idea.
Yeah, and I know some people that will actually, every time they enter into a different environment, they'll actually take a moment to kind of debrief. And I know that's a lot of work. I mean, I can see that taking a lot of time too and being really consuming. But imagine if every time that you went from your house to your car, and your car to a restaurant, and your restaurant to, well, back to your car, but to, right. You know what I'm saying, or to work or to whatever. If you were to reevaluate what you just went through and just do a quick little run through, like, what would you uncover from that? I do that with conversations personally. Like every time I have a good conversation or a bad one, I run back through it in my head and see what I missed and see what, you know, I think I brought this up before, but I see like what was said, how certain things affected me, what was positive, what was negative, so I can learn from it. We can do the same thing with idea creation and really go back through each of your experiences and figure out how they made you feel. Like, was there something that really bothers you, or was there something that really excited you? You know, be open and be present to those kind of things. I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, but you know, our ideas, like there's so many of them, and we invest so much of our time into them. But I don't want to, there's that end where people are going to pursue that idea and it's not necessarily going to be the one.
Yeah.
And that's the moment where you have to remember that doesn't matter. You just learned, you know, by pursuing, you know, and every single time that you fail is obviously another step. We say this all the time, and I just want to make sure we nail that into everybody. It's just because like this one idea doesn't work doesn't mean there's going to be one. But thankfully, there's obviously a bunch of ways that we can find another one. And if we're going to like look into a few other different ways to actually pursue an idea or find an idea, you know, it's another way that we could do it is basically it's kind of in and around the pain, because I think pain is huge for a business, because I think a lot of people think of ideas for a business without thinking about the pain first. Okay. And they spend all this time and they don't know what it is. So another way to do it is take your immediate environment, right? And you kind of brought this up, like when you're walking out to your car, you know, is looking at your environment and trying to take two things that you think are actually great and then figuring out how you can marry them together. And I kind of brought this up in a previous episode about my passion for film, my passion for stories, and my passion for business, and how I was combining those into my new product.
Yeah.
So doing something like that, have you had experiences similar to trying to figure out ways that where you could combine things together?
Yeah, I have, but nothing I can count like.
That's completely
Yeah.
fine. But what I'm trying to say is that's an interesting exercise for people to do, and I think it's something that a lot of big thinkers kind of try and do as well.
Yeah.
For instance, like Steve Jobs when we were going to create the first iPhone, right? And he was basically wiping out his main product. Just to marry, obviously the amazing invention of the cell phone into also basically an iPod.
Yeah.
So he was like, why isn't this part of this?
Yeah.
Like, that's stupid. Like, it's basically the same size device. It's obviously uses the same exact kind of technology. Why aren't these things combined?
Yeah.
And he basically wiped out an entire what was their main selling thing for a long time, more so than their computers, into obviously one of the biggest products of all time. So that's a huge example of how something like that could work.
So it's interesting. I have like an adverse relationship with pain pointing, if you will, because I do feel like there are natural born entrepreneurs that just do things better than other people. Right. And I think that the realization of the pain that you're solving can actually come after the product is released. I really, truly believe that there are people that are so good at what they do, they will just be better than other people. How they come about that may not necessarily be part of their idea creating process, like why they created this service. I think in some instances, if you are gung-ho about something enough, then you can just go after it. And then sure, at some point, even just as part of your marketing, you're going to have to establish why you are better than the rest of the people doing the same thing you are, and why it's important to society. But
especially if you're looking for money from people.
Yeah, so that's another good point. So I think there's unless, do you want to touch more on pain points or anything, or like
no,
finding the problem?
We can progress.
Okay. So I think there's a practical element of all this too. And it may or may not come into play for some people, because I think there are people that can just make shit work. But there are some people that, like me, I'm a little more analytical. So when I think about something, I cover a lot of different bases. So the other two bases that I would cover, one would be what's your lifestyle, and how does that, how does it work with your business idea? And so, like, if you look at yourself in 5 years, where do you see yourself?
Are you asking me? Oh,
well,
no.
I was kind of throwing it out there to the universe, but like,
Sure.
I think it's good to think about that. Do you see yourself busting your ass? Do you see yourself on an island somewhere? I mean, is your dream really to work at something hard? Or do you see yourself traveling? Because maybe there's a career in that for you. Or do you, it's another way to figure out kind of what you're passionate about, but it's also like, there are certain lifestyles, excuse me. There's certain lifestyles associated with certain industries.
Absolutely.
And so I think that being cognizant of that helps you determine whether your idea is something that you want to pursue, just based on if it meshes with where you see yourself in a certain amount of time.
Absolutely.
And there's a certain realism that comes with that too. Like, you really have to be honest with yourself, because I think all of us want to look forward and say like, 5 years, I'll be, on a beach with my hot wife hanging out.
That's right.
But you need to be realistic. And I think that the other one is money.
Right.
I think that there are two types of people, and there are some people that are just going to find a way to do it. Totally cool. But again, it is industry specific. There are certain barriers to entry that are going to affect your idea, your creation, and your business.
Right.
So if if you're creating a product that costs tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to prototype, just make sure that you feel comfortable in either lie, borrow, and stealing from everyone that you possibly can to get your hands on the money,
right, or
you're confident in your ability to do so. If you're not comfortable with those things, then maybe you want to pursue an idea that has less upfront costs, or it determines whether or not you do it as a side hustle while you're still maintaining some sort of income. So there's, I think there's huge practical elements to ideas as well.
Yeah.
And maybe that's more business starting than finding your idea, but I think that they all can kind of come into play.
Yeah, I'd love to dive more into both of those points. And so I'll start with the first one that you were talking about, when in terms of like kind of like the goal setting aspect, like where do you see yourself, right? And it you're right. It's hugely important to determine that, like, because every step you take, like if you don't care about living in the Bahamas in a mansion, then you don't need an idea you don't have to take as big steps as you might have to do something else that's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So generating an idea around that aspect is really interesting, because I like the idea of someone who doesn't care if they live in North Dakota, in a suburb, and they come home and they're flipping burgers at the end of the day, and they're happy with it. They're happy with life. They made their thing. They're making enough money to get by, and they're great with it.
Yeah.
And then also, finding that idea of, like, I am in 10 years, I'm going to be I'm going to have the biggest company in the world, which is like definitely a stretch. And again, like you said, they're completely different ideas that get you to those places. Not to say that the small guy might not turn into, a multi-millionaire based off their idea, because if he's passionate about it and he has and there is a market for it, I think a lot of people would be surprised about how big those small markets actually are. Yeah. And that's kind of leads me into another subtopic that I'll dive into right now, which is like kind of niching down, right? Mm-hmm. So when you have that big idea, maybe that big idea is too big. Mm-hmm. Kind of like expanding more on that. And what I think what you should really try and do is make sure that you are making this idea specific enough to where you can pinpoint the exact person that would actually buy it. Sure. Whatever it is, service, product, doesn't matter. You have to niche it down, and niche it down even more. And people say this all the time. There's this guy, he's another amazing podcaster named Pat. Everybody's gonna kill me that's listening to this, because you probably also listen to him as well. But it's the Smart and Passive Income podcast, and he talks about the riches are in the niches. So making sure that that
snitches get stitches.
And breaking down your ideas and breaking them down until you don't think they couldn't be breaking down, and then break it down even more.
Yeah.
And that's not only does that make the idea more tangible for you to create, it means that you can specifically target a person that is going to buy it, which is something that you have to think about when you're creating an idea. Yeah. Is who you're going to actually sell it to.
Yeah. And I like that too, because a lot of times people come up with ideas that puts them on the same playing field as giants. And I never recommend that unless your idea is so profound that it wouldn't necessarily put you in there on their radar. I think you should never, and this is just my opinion, but as all of this is obviously, but like, I don't think you should ever put yourselves in their scopes. So you can, by honing in on the specific demographic and the specific person, really, like you said, that is going to be buying your product, your service, or seeing benefit in whatever value that you're bringing to the table, you eliminate having to compete with the people that just have more resources than you do, which you want to avoid, especially when you're starting up something at this level, at an infancy level.
Right. Yeah. It's just like, like for instance, like Steve Jobs, like we're not going to go make an iPhone, no. And if you are, like, you're not.
No.
And then, you know what, like if you are, and if you can, and you think you have like the finances and the resources to do so, please go and do it.
No, that's not. Then you're stupid. Seriously, don't go do it. Do not ever go to battle with the iPhone. You will lose. You will get destroyed. You won't get bought out. You will get destroyed. Don't do it. Don't fucking do it.
What I'm saying is, if you're Larry Page or something and you're ready to go, then fine. But Larry Page, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
This podcast isn't for you, sir.
Somebody hashtag.
No, we're talking to the ragtag 5 o'clock hustlers who are looking to really go out there and make their first business and make it something viable, something that's
Yeah.
going to give them passive income, perhaps to help them boost their income from their day jobs, or something to hopefully, transition to whatever passion it is that they have.
Yeah. So on that, let's talk about the financial aspect of it, because
Sure.
you do have to determine once you've, I think we're assuming we're kind of covering two topics. One is getting an idea, and then one is figuring out which of the ideas that you come up with out of the freaking hundreds
Right.
is the right idea.
Yeah.
So there are two steps to that, and I think that we've kind of covered it chronologically. Like, you want to start, with your passion, and start what you're good at or experience with, and then start thinking about what the pain points are, and then you slowly just keep kind of filtering out
Right.
different ideas until you land on the one that you are really set on. But again, so we talk about side hustles. There are many ideas that you could pursue as a side hustle versus as a full-time business.
Right.
There are many ideas you cannot pursue as a side hustle. There are numerous things that will not work unless you give 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to them.
Right.
And if you take them so slowly that you're dealing with a side hustle, you may actually lose. And it's not even just timing. There are a lot of factors into how quickly things need to move in order for them to be successful and to keep
Practicality.
momentum. So it's like you have to determine if you are willing to jump all in. Like, do you have the bandwidth? Do you have the mental bandwidth? Do you have, how big's your nut?
Yeah.
And your overhead? Like, do you have a family and children? Have you saved up enough to jump all into something that is risky or not? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's one side of it. The other side, again, like I said earlier, was, do you have access to money?
Right.
And do you think you have access to money? Like, for me, if you were to tell me you had an amazing idea and you only need you're like, you wouldn't say this, but I need, oh my gosh, I need $250,000. I would say, cool, we'll get that tomorrow. Like, show me the idea. Let's write out the business plan. We'll get $250,000. $250,000
Right.
is literally nothing. In my head, getting $250,000 for a great idea is something that people will give you every day, every night, twice on Sunday if you're lucky.
Right. Yeah.
So that's in my head. So I would never have a financial concern. But everyone, all these 5-0s out here are going to be really different about how they look at money.
And I am myself, and I think that. Like I'm like you, because I think you were much more deeply involved in the corporate world. You've dealt with a lot of dealings that surround that type of process. For me, I come from my day job, which we talked about, is like, it's like from an entrepreneurial family company, and that's kind of how I grew up. So that's kind of been my entire experience. So I've been more in line with the kind of bootstrap mentality. It's like I feel bad about taking people's money because I'm not sure I'm going to give them exactly what they want.
But you know what they want.
I do know what they want.
They want a return.
They want a return, exactly. But in terms of I think there can be a lot of friction there, right? Because they might like your idea initially, but because it's your baby that it needs to go this way, and then all of a sudden they don't agree with it, and then the idea could be turned into something completely different that you didn't want, and you're going to lose the passion, and things are going to happen that way. So it's really about aligning yourself with that idea and understanding which way you're going to go with it is going to determine its success. And if you're not in line with, supporting a bunch of shareholders in this entire situation, a bunch of people owning a piece of your company, then you're going to have a lot of problems down the road. And the same way, if you think that you're going to start a business with $0 and you don't have enough time to even work on the idea, a few hours a day, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
So it goes both ways, and it depends on the type of person you are. It depends on what your goals are that you set, and then going from there and breaking down, making sure that idea is in line with who you are as an individual.
Yeah, I think that money is the more we talk about this, the more I want to get deeper and deeper into it. I know we don't have a ton of time. We're trying to make these a little bit more like micro episodes, but money is probably the scariest thing for everyone in this business. Well, not everyone. There are certain people that if it's scary, it is really fucking scary to everyone.
Sure.
And if it's not, then it doesn't play any kind of fear whatsoever. Like, for me, I really I know how much money there is out there, and how many investors there are out there, and how many companies are out there that have funds allocated to, throwing shit at a wall, literally.
Right.
And so that doesn't bother me, but I will say that there is a large delta between the people that are scared of money and that are not.
Right.
It's a big difference, and I think that it's something that needs to be discussed even more so. Maybe we'll have another episode about this.
Definitely.
Because I would challenge everyone, and I'll bring this up when we're definitely going to have to build on this, but I would say I would challenge anyone that thinks that financing will be an issue with their business to draw out a business plan. If you have any issues with that business plan, I mean, put some effort into it for sure. But if you have any issues with it, just email us at general@5o'clockhustle. We'll look it over. We'll give you quick notes. Take that business plan and reach out to 20 different investors. Just go online. Go online and look up investors, and you will be shocked at the feedback.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. No, forget LinkedIn. Even just Google it. There's so many people that list themselves as investors, as VCs, as angel investors, that are so happy to hear about a new idea.
Yeah.
Because we're all just a bunch of sensitive pussies these days.
Well, it's their job.
It's their job.
And if they don't like it, then they're a shitty VC.
But that's the thing, is their job a lot of the time is to reach out to people.
Yeah.
So like, imagine getting an email, from anyone that says, "Hey, I have this great idea," and they're going to call you. And then once you show that you're knowledgeable about the idea and you've thought it through, they're going to want to buy into that.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, money, and again, let's take a really deep dive into this in a later episode for sure. But
sure.
Money is one of those things. It's hard to start. It's hard to come by. It's very scary because you have to make it in order to continue doing what you're doing. Like, but yeah, definitely, at a very high level, obviously you want to consider money when you're considering the idea you want to use to change your life.
Yeah. I think I just watched too many sports movies. Like there's something like romantic about that team that just kind of pulls himself up by the bootstraps and like they win the championship. We were just at HustleCon a couple of weeks ago, and Jake Kazan was one of the keynotes. Yeah. And he was talking about his experience. Movement watches. He's got an incredible following.
I'd love to have him on. We should reach out to him and see if he'll come on.
Definitely we have to try and get him on. Yeah. But he his story was he had a credit card. He didn't have money.
He bootstrapped without boots.
He didn't have money. He had a credit card with like a $3,000 limit.
Yeah.
And then now he's making, multi-million dollars a month.
Yeah. And he's a super down to earth guy.
Yeah.
And he's buff as shit too. So he's got his stuff in gear. Like,
what do they say? Like you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around. And I think that's why he's buff, because everybody that was around him were gigantic human beings, look like they're the Avengers or something.
And I spoke with them too, but they were also very mentally fit. So I think that, as far as who he's surrounding himself with, he's done a really good job with that. And maybe that's one of the keys to his success. So
yeah, incredible story. And I hope we can get him on. But, we're pushing 40 minutes here. We were trying to get these master series down to 30 minutes. But I think I got some good value out of this. I hope our listeners, I hope you guys got some good value out of this. We talked about the process of formulating ideas and breaking them down and figuring out if they're going to be actually possible to pursue. And I think that's huge for a lot of us 5 o'clock hustlers. And I hope you guys let us know what you think about this episode of the 5 o'clock hustle podcast master series. Like I said at the top, we're doing these sporadically. We're going to do these every now and again. It's not going to be the main episode format that we do. But I think it's really fun because we get to take some of our expertise and some of the experience that we have and share it to you guys, as opposed to our incredible guests that we have. And we have a really great one next week.
And the week after, and the week after, and the week after.
Well, there's
and the Squadcast.
There's a Squadcast in there.
We have some really fire guests coming up. Not, we continue to bring the goods. That's for sure. So, all right, everyone, really appreciate it. Like Chris said, and Dre couldn't make it. Unfortunately, he has a large family and some family members aren't feeling well. They actually have something that's passing around the house. It's terrible sickness. Not terrible. It's not terminal or anything, but hopefully they're feeling better soon. But that's why Dre's not here. But anyway, like Chris said, give us feedback and let us know how you're feeling, what's going on. Otherwise, we're looking forward to chatting with you the next time. And keep hustling.
Keep hustling, guys.
Get back up the next morning.
Every week I got a new idea.
And that's what it always is, right? It's crazy.
5 o'clock.
I was doing that in 2005, but everybody thought it was weird.
5 o'clock.
Thus, the side hustle.
Was created.
5 o'clock hustle podcast. Man, we're having so much fun.